It's the Locked On Flyers podcast for Monday, April 1st, your daily dose of Flyers news, analysis, and high quality content that is wondering if this team is fooling us in some ways today.
Yeah, Fooling Yourself was a good song by Styx.
Your Locked On Flyers, your daily podcast on the Philadelphia Flyers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, and thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen every day. I am Rachel Donner. You can find me on Twitter at rmiriam. I'm here as always with Russ Cohen, who's on all your favorite social media apps at Sportsology. We are at Locked On Flyers on Twitter, Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky as well. Today's episode is brought to you by Sleeper. Download the Sleeper app, use the promo code LOCKEDONNHL to get up to $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. You can find our show over on YouTube or on the SiriusXM app or anywhere you listen to podcasts. You'll get our latest episode as soon as it's available here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Russ, you did not go in the April Fool's joke direction that I thought you might in the intro there. But one thing that is not fooling about the Flyers right now is Ivan Fedotov, because he is officially on the Flyers roster. They held a mini press conference with him there and, getting ready to go last week. And I did post a clip of my portion of the Locked On NHL podcast, which I co-host on Fridays, that we talked about Fedotov on our feeds. If you haven't watched it on YouTube, you can do that there. I think that this was like whirlwind, absolutely whirlwind, with how all this went down. They weren't really willing to talk about the specifics of it and just saying, let's move forward and talk about hockey. But he seems like raring to go.
Yeah, he might be raring to go, but I just think it's incredibly risky to have him sitting on the bench when he's never played in an NHL game with any of these players. He's been in one practice. Maybe by the time he gets in a game, it'll be 2 or 3 practices, but he's never been in an NHL game, and he hasn't really played much in North America, and he's played on a few smaller rinks in Russia. Like, this is incredibly risky to just put this guy out in this position. Of course, he's going to say he's raring to go and everything, and until maybe he's not. Like, we don't know. I can't tell you how he's going to do, but all I can tell you is if in one of these key games Sam Ersson gets hurt early, it may not be a positive.
Yeah, I think, cautious optimism is the way I'm looking at it here, because obviously we know he's been a tremendous goaltender in the past and we've seen him do great things. We talked about him last week in terms of, how he backstopped that Russian team in the Olympics. And that Danny Briere kind of echoed this, saying he watched most of his games from this past year in the KHL and that he recognized there was some rust at first, but thought he had a really good second half of the season in the KHL and felt confident about it. They're in talks for a contract extension, but it's not done yet. But that it is super risky. And I was thinking about it during the Blackhawks game as well, because, when things were going south in that game, I think under normal circumstances, you do a goalie pull.
Absolutely. No question.
And there was no way to do that. There was just no way to do that unless it was an injury circumstance. Right. And so I do think that kind of affected the Blackhawks game a little bit.
I do think there's that. And look, there was a little bit of talk, and I think it was smart. People are people. You could say that, goalies are professional and everything else, but Sam Ersson is now looking over his shoulder where he wasn't before. It could affect his play. I'm not saying he lost the game. He can't score goals.
No.
So again, that game is not on him. But I'm just saying it's probably not the most comfortable thing for him. And I hope fans understand that. He's going to tell you what he's going to need to tell you for the media. But all I can tell you is Sandstrom's a friend. Licksell is a friend who wasn't in there. Like, these things matter.
Well, somebody who was in the lineup is Nick Seeler.
Yeah.
He returned, and it was interesting because he's a guy that you expect to like maybe shore up the penalty kill that's been a little weaker as of late. Expect him to block a ton of shots, and he did not do that.
No.
Now, I think that partially it was due to him just coming back, and partially because the way the Blackhawks were playing the Flyers didn't have a lot of opportunities to block a ton of shots because they were just behind the play.
Right. I think it was partially that, and I also think it was partially because he is still banged up. I
Yeah.
did see a play where a player went into the corner and kicked one of Sealer's feet, and I think it stung him a bit, and he lost the puck on that play. And again, opposing teams always know where players are injured and how they're injured, and they test them. Travis Sanheim got double teamed in the corner against the boards, and he went right off really slow. And he wasn't really the same until the third period. So teams are now going to do these things. So I don't think Sealer is going to be 100%.
I don't think so either. But relatedly, because Nick Seeler checked back into the game, they had to sit a defenseman, and they chose in this game to sit Ronnie Attard and keep Adam Ginning in, which I think I understand. Like in terms of style of play, they figured, well, they're going to have to pair up Ginning, who's more of a defensive defenseman, with a more offensively minded guy. And if Sealer's back in, um, you know, that's the way the cookie crumbles here. But why not sit Johnson as well?
Right. That's what they should have done because, like, I saw Sealer take one or two shots, completely miss the net, right? Because he's rusty.
Yeah.
Adder
Yeah.
can shoot and hit the net. I think thinking like John, he kept Ginning in there because he likes that he's physical and he just gets the puck out quick. But again, that wasn't what you needed in this game. You needed some offensive push from the blue line. They got none of that. And, we could talk about what he said in the post game. So he's aware of some of it, and some of it he's just blindly just rolling the dice,
Right. And, he also put Guryanov back in this. Now, I
which made
understand.
no sense.
No. In a vacuum, you just look at this schedule and you're like, "Oh, if you need to get a young guy a game just to do some evaluation, this game makes sense." The circumstances of this game were different.
Right.
And I just really think you leave Lixell in,
I
and
mean, I
especially
laughed. I honestly laughed
yeah.
when someone said Guryanov was in. They're like, "Why are you laughing?" I'm like, "Because he's a dumb hockey player and he makes bad mistakes, and they're putting him in because he's big and fast, and it's not going to work out." And it didn't.
Yeah, and with a struggling Cates and Sean Couturier, who's just doing everything he can to get more minutes, like
This
that's
poor
no
guy, and I
yeah,
don't like
not
the
fair to
fans.
anybody.
It's not, and I don't like that some fans are, like, really getting on him a little bit, not booing him or anything, but, like, on social media. Look, he's having trouble staying up on his skates at times. I don't know if it's upper body or lower body. I do feel like it's shoulderish, but I don't know. I don't know what it is, but he's clearly not the same. Again, I
Yeah.
just say use him what he's good at. Use him on faceoffs. I mean, you're now trying. I mean, they had Ryan Paling in there again for some big faceoffs, and then in the third period when they were really desperate in the offensive zone, they put Scott Lawton there. Like he's not gonna. This, you could say what you want about the Blackhawks, and we talked about them fairly. That hey, they
Yeah.
might be near the bottom of the league, but they still have some talented players, and we talked about them, and a lot of them stepped up. And I'll just say it like this. Nick Foligno, who used to play for John Tortorella in Columbus,
Right.
I asked him flat out, did you guys talk about getting off to a fast start against this team, knowing how they are? And he said, yeah, I played for Torts. I urged these guys to get out of the gates quick. And the Flyers haven't gotten out of the gate quick the last 3 games.
Right. So let's talk about that
Yes.
because John Tortorella talked about that specifically in the post game, and that they played really terribly. I think he specifically said they sucked
Mhm.
in this
They
game.
did.
But he also said that they were gassed and mentioned Cam York and Travis Sanheim specifically. Well, like who gives them the ice time? Like
Right.
there's an
There's a
explanation
yin
for
and
that.
yang here. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and so, and he talked about they need to practice certain things, but they can't because 'cause it'll tire them out more, and this is, like, what we've been talking about
We
this
talked about it
season.
day 1 of the season, folks.
Yeah, that, like, it's not a bad thing what Torts has been able to accomplish, like, it's really good what he has done with this team and has had them outplay expectations tremendously,
Sure.
and I am thrilled with that, but there was gonna be a cost to how he was going about it, and
Right.
this is the cost,
Yeah.
and I think that's a fair assessment. It's not that Torts is a bad coach, he just made choices that have
He's
consequences.
an older coach that's sorta set in his ways, probably doesn't believe in load management, and load management could have been his friend this year.
Yeah, and especially with some of these younger guys that if they had just kept Lixell in and Jennings in,
Yeah.
maybe they would have had a little bit more energy. I mean, you
Yeah.
look at Tyson Forster, he had the most energy of anybody
Absolutely.
in that game, and
Young
he was rewarded.
legs at the end
Yeah,
of a season, like, it's not rocket science. We've seen this for every time we've been watching hockey, all of us.
right, and Forster was rewarded with his 20th goal of the season, like,
Yeah.
thrilled for him, I
Although I
think.
gotta tell you, this is where again, like, I understand John's upset that they lost the game, and he goes, "Yeah, it's a great goal." He goes, "I don't really care if he passes Bedard or not." Like, it's like, you should never really kinda squash,
Do you know what's
uh,
funny? It
player goals.
is Yeah, he said that, and I think he immediately knew it was a bad thing to say because not like 30 seconds later, he
Yeah.
talked about the play specifically in glowing terms.
I know, but
So,
again,
I think he
understand what
knew
this means.
right away.
Right, but you can't just understand what
I
this
know,
means to your
I know.
players, especially a young player. Like, come on, man.
Yep. Alright, well, there are now playoff implications to this loss and to what else is going on around the NHL. The Flyers face the Islanders, who are in a critical portion of their playoff run, and we're gonna talk about all of that coming up next. It's an important point in the season. The team is in the thick of the playoff hunt, but regardless of where we are in the standings, I want to remind you that you could win big by playing daily fantasy hockey on Sleeper, the official daily fantasy hockey app of the Locked On NHL network. Sleeper is our number one choice for daily fantasy sports and especially fantasy hockey, because with Sleeper, you can win 100 times your cash in daily fantasy hockey contests. You can also play daily fantasy NFL, NBA, MLB, and college football, and sleeper entries can be made in under a minute. All you have to do is pick whether NHL superstars like Connor McDavid, Nikita Kucherov, or Nathan McKinnon, plus flyer standouts like Travis Konechny will record more or less than sleeper projections for things like goals, assists, saves, plus, minus, or more in any given game. To win 100 times bet on sleeper, you need to correctly predict the outcome of 8 player stats. You heard me, you can win 100 times your money playing daily fantasy hockey with sleeper. So start paying attention and nail those picks so you can start winning big. Use promo code Locked On NHL and you'll get up to $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That's code Locked On NHL. See Sleeper's terms of use for details and locational availability. Are you watching sports on cable TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So the New York Islanders, we are in a similar kind of boat with the Islanders, although the Islanders are further out of the picture, right? So the Flyers are now in the second wild card spot. The Caps are in the 3 spot since they got a point in their game that they had at the same time as the Flyers were playing. So, like, what do you think it means for both the Flyers and Islanders for this game?
It's everything. And this is why, like, the fans that have been saying, "Well, maybe we should put Fedotov in." No, you shouldn't. Uh, you really shouldn't. It means everything. So here's where, even though the Islanders are not a spectacular team, and even though they have not had a great season, they got a lot of players with experience in this kind of situation. All kinds. Fourth liners, guys like Horvat, guys like Barzell, Palmieri, who's actually done great for them in the second half. So you worry about that because they understand that
Right.
part of it. Sorokin early on was kind of suffering, and apparently I was just talking. We had Ted Starkey on our Off the Post show, and he explained that they were just giving up way too many chances in front of him for half a season, and then they kind of got that under
Right.
control. So Sorokin's not as bad as maybe his numbers might seem, and he's still Sorokin. Any given day,
Right.
he could do really well. So this is a challenging game. There's a few things that I saw that were coaching mistakes or player mistakes. I'm going to say it's coaching because you could tell them when they get to the bench. And I understand, I saw Jordan Hall tweet that Tortorella gave an earful to Couturier on a play. It's like, again, why him? Like, why is he the guy? I did look at it, and Lawton was 80% for faceoffs. And so I guess that's why he gave him the last one, but he still lost it. And he's not a key guy. He's not a key guy for that. Frost was 61.5%, right? And Paling is 50. If nothing else, please understand that Frost is better on faceoffs than Paling. I understand that the coach has a like for Paling. I have a like for him. But in dead-end terms, Frost is a better face-off guy. He's got better hands.
Yeah,
and
for key
quicker.
situations.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And they just won't do it. They refuse to do it. There's some stubbornness. On the penalty kill, one of the reasons why they are suffering is because they're too damn aggressive for the kind of guys that they are right now. Early in the season, and for half the season, it was working. They were getting some goals. They were getting great chances. Stop always looking to score and actually sit back. The guy who sat next to me was like, the penalty kill, here's the thing about it. You're actually supposed to sit back and kill the penalty. And the Flyers have lost some of that because on that goal that they gave up, I forget who it was, there was a board battle right on the sideboard, and he probably figured, the Flyer probably figured, I win this battle, I can go get a chance down the end. He loses the battle, the puck goes around the other end, there's a shot, there's a score. That's it. That's what it takes. Sit back on that, and it doesn't happen. And you can't worry about the offense that you might get from the PK anymore. You just have to worry about stopping pucks at this point. And they've lost sight of that.
Could be. Absolutely could be. With the Islanders having 5 fewer points than the Flyers and 2 games in hand, like clearly we know the stakes for both teams here. We haven't actually seen the Islanders since November.
Which is nuts.
Absolutely nuts. There was that home and home series where the Isles won the first game, the Flyers won that 1-0 shootout with Samerson in net. But Islanders have a new coach since we saw them last in Patrick Roy, which again seems like eons ago at this point. He is 12-12-4 so far.
He's the NHL 500 pretty much. Under, whatever.
I would say the one thing he has done is change up the Islanders line significantly, and he actually does so more often in game than some other coaches that I've seen. And he even, did it in their last game versus Tampa, just completely threw things in a blender. But the Isles have struggled mightily. They won against the Panthers, but when you get, you lose 4-1 versus Tampa, you get shut out by the Devils, you lose to the Red Wings recently. Like, it just feels like they just don't want it enough.
I don't think it's that. I think it's much like the Flyers. They're inconsistent lately because I think it just had, their season's been frustrating for them, more frustrating than the Flyers, but they're both inconsistent lately. And I think they're playing like an inconsistent team. Again, they always have struggles to score. They're always going to have struggles to score. But again, there's a few key things in this game that you have to worry about. You have to worry about Noah Dobson. Noah Dobson in time and space can really get the puck up the ice and make things happen. You have to be ready for that. You got to be ready to cover that guy. Barzal's got tremendous speed too, right? So he's always going to be trying to fly up the wing or get that stretch pass. And so that's something, again, you have to watch out for. Horvat is a grizzled veteran who's played in the playoffs. Like, there's some guys that you still have to watch out for, much like what we said with Chicago. But the only difference is the Islanders' defense is even though they're missing some guys, it's a lot more battle tested than even the Chicago defense when you go up and down the lineup. So it'll be an interesting thing. Again, I have to caution. Now, it didn't kill them that game, but when you're playing someone like Hathaway on the top line and you see the temper that he's got, that could have really cost them at the end of the game with him getting tossed. If it
Yep.
was a close game,
Yep.
because he's a good skater and he's a good defender, but the reason you don't have him on the top line is because sometimes he creates a little too much havoc. And I've noticed that the dial has been turned up very high on him the last 3 or 4 games, and we've seen this. We've seen him just kind of lose his temper. And the against the Islanders could be frustrating that way because they do have some bigger guys and they do go to the net, and they're going to be crashing the net. And that we've talked
Right.
about crashing the net lately, and even Chicago was able to get in on the net fairly easy. I mean, they let Bedard walk in one time, just
Several times,
but
I
maybe
would
twice.
say.
If I don't know if the second one
Yeah.
was a walk in. Ursa made a nice glove save, but yeah, so I question some things that are going on strategically.
Right. And I think with the Islanders specifically, they don't like emphasize getting a ton of offensive zone time. Like that is not how they
No,
play, but they have that speed and create opportunities on the rush.
yeah,
And with the Flyers having tired legs, and like that is something that is going to have an effect in this game that they're going to have to be careful for. That be a little bit more conservative in keeping like one guy back,
yes,
that they may not have otherwise, because that is exactly how the Islanders score when they score is on like quick plays,
yeah.
getting it on the rush, but even like set plays they're good at as
But the
well.
Islanders are going to start off fast. With Patrick
Mhm.
Waugh as their coach, they will start off fast. And I don't know why the Flyers can't start off fast because not every single guy on the team is dinged. So it's like figure out who's going to give you the best start and just use that line. Doesn't matter if it's not your number one line.
Right.
And that's my whole thing is just do that. But again, the extra elevation of Paling, I think, has hurt them because these are matchups that Frost could be getting and could be doing a better job, but he's not.
Yeah.
So, and I saw like when there was some good desperate play coming out of the Flyers, Frost was doing that. He was actually creating out there and was making some good passes, doing some good zone entries when they were lacking. They were lacking a lot of that. And that's what Paling kind of lacks. He may have the speed, and he may be faster than Frost, but he doesn't have the same kind of vision and playmaking ability. He just doesn't. And that's the difference in different types of centers and where you're going to put them in the lineup. And I think they should notice that. And, I might make a case to pull Noah Cates. I just don't see what he does
Yeah.
anymore. And I think if nothing else, Lixell, you have to cover him because he's fast and he is tricky. And Lixell has created some shots for himself in games. Cates creates zero offense. At this point, it's nothing.
I know it's upsetting to me, but that is correct. And I think that Lixell should be in over Cates, if nothing else, in
Right.
this scenario. But yeah, I think this is
We
gonna be a
might see
tough game.
Delorier back in this one because of Matt Martin and Clutterbuck. And
I
that's
don't
going to
know.
tax the team too, right? If he comes in and only plays 5 minutes, that's going to
Yeah.
tax the team.
Yeah. I think ice time is gonna be key as well, like you said. But yeah, we'll see how that goes. We'll recap it on tomorrow's show, along with having Phantoms Tuesday, as we do each and every Tuesday. But it is Monday now, so we will have our Nemesis of the week coming up next.
The sports calendar is loaded and FanDuel's making it even more exciting to get in on the action because right now new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200, $200 you could win to bet the tourney. MLB, NBA, NHL, and so much more. Boy, Houston's out. Uh, I don't know. I guess Caitlin Clark and Iowa maybe are still in it. Maybe. I don't know. I'm running out of guesses here. Visit fanduel.com/locked on and make your first bet a big win. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook.
Before we dig into our Nemesis, just a Frozen Four update for our Flyers prospects. Michigan defeated North Dakota So Owen McLaughlin is out of the tourney. He had 1 assist for Nodak in the loss.
Yeah, he wasn't that noticeable. I watched the game. He's got some work to do, but we knew he'd be a longer term project. So I'm okay
Right.
with it. He put up a point. He's a guy who's going to go the duration at college, and I'm fine with that.
Yep, absolutely. BU defeated Minnesota 6-3. Bryce Brodzinski had a goal and an assist in the loss
The minute they are
against.
done, get him
Yeah.
signed.
Devin Kaplan didn't have any points in the win for BU, but
He's
he's
done
young.
well.
He's
He's had a
got
pretty good
time.
tournament. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say so. Michigan over Western Michigan. Alex Bump, a goal and an assist in the loss.
Yeah, nice to
He's
see.
playing pretty well. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's good.
Um, so in the meantime, Quinnipiac won, Denver won. So we have that first semifinal set as of recording, but we don't know the second semifinal yet.
Right.
It'll either be BC or Quinnipiac versus Michigan State for the other spots. And man, Michigan versus Michigan State is going to be a doozy.
It will. It will. I still think Michigan State could win that one with
Yeah,
Augustine as good as he is this year, and
I know. That's
and Lev Shunoff, who's going to be a
yep,
top 5 pick. So
yep.
it'll be a fun game. I'm going to be watching that one. I will say this though, scouts are very aware of Massimo Rizzo. The Flyers should talk to him after this season. If they don't get him signed after the season, I do kind of think he's going to look
He's
at his
gonna walk.
option. He could.
Yeah,
He might not, but he
yeah,
could.
yeah, absolutely. All right, getting to our nemesis of the week. Last week, I talked a lot about scoreboard watching and not getting too distracted by that because you got to focus on what the Flyers can do. I still think that's true, although I did do scoreboard watching, so did not listen to myself. But watching the Caps creep up and take over that third spot in the standings was not enjoyable to me. You talked a little bit about the game presentation and the DJs playing the music too loud like an old man, but that's okay. We still love you anyway. The nemesis this week for me is something we've been talking about all episode, is how do we get the fresh legs out there and balance ice time with also having the most effective lineup? And that is the question of the day, right? Because Tortorella couldn't answer the question post game. He specifically said he didn't know the answer. And I think that, we've talked a little bit about it in terms of getting some of the younger guys in there and getting them more ice time and getting Frost in the right situations. And I think there's a path forward there that we've alluded to. It's just a matter of will the team do that?
Here's my nemesis. Mine is, I understand that the guys may be tired and you can't have practice. That means you can't have physical practice. Why can't there be film study? Why can't they all get together and watch some film and the mistakes that they're making and see if they could tighten things up? Let the coaches talk to the players, let them highlight some of the things that are going on. You don't have to do that for 2 hours, but you could do it for a half hour, 40 minutes. Why can't they
Maybe
do
they
that?
are. And
I
he
don't
was
think
just
they are.
talking about on
No,
ice practice.
I don't think they are. I don't think they are.
Well, we don't know that for sure. But at the same time, I think it's important to do those things regardless.
It is.
All right, this week we have the New York Islanders tonight. We've got the Sabres later in the week, as well as the Devils. So I think that, or sorry, the Blue Jackets. And so some opportunities here, but also some downtime where other teams are going to be able to rack up some points. So we got to keep an eye on.
You know what the most
all of
frustrating thing
that.
is for a team? Having to watch the other teams to figure out what's going to happen because you run out of games.
Scoreboard watching.
Yeah.
We just talked about
But for
it.
players, it's worse.
Yeah.
Like I can
yeah.
imagine, fans have their own angst with that. I can imagine for players, it's worse.
Yeah, absolutely. Also just want to quickly mention, it was really cool to see the Delaware women's
Yes.
hockey announcement takes center stage at the game. With the coach dropping the puck and all of that. And it's going to be really cool to watch this partnership.
Yeah, I saw them
develop.
give a jersey to Danny Briere and Barry Hanrahan. They both got jerseys and
Yep.
they were swapping up in the press box. It was nice to see. I'm really
Yep.
happy about it. I wish it were next year, but you got to wait.
Yeah, takes a little while to build a program.
It does.
All right, that'll do it for today's show. As a reminder, we always want to hear from you. If you've got a mailbag question or a prospect you want us to look into, let us know via Twitter at Locked On Flyers. You can email us at lockedonflyers@gmail or comment over on YouTube. I'm Rachel. I'm on Twitter at rmiriam. That's RMIRIAM.
I'm Russ. I'm at Sportsology, SPORTSOLOGY.
Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. It's also available on Amazon Fire TV in their free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with local experts of Locked On, plus national shows covering every league. You can find Locked On Sports Today available on the free Fire TV channels app. Have a great day, everyone.